All right, welcome everybody to week 8, day 1. Today we are going to have a short class because we are going to be mostly presenting the role-playing games today. These will not be recorded for privacy reasons, but we are going to learn a little bit of C++ knowledge today. And so let's just get into it. Today we're going to be learning about how to read structured data from a file. So this is how most real programs operate. Like some, will take input from the keyboard, but most real programs are going to have some sort of file and some sort of file format, and they're going to read that thing into your program when it launches oftentimes, or sometimes if you like load a document. Like you go into Word, you hit open, you open a file. So let's say that we've got here a file called Titanic. Cat, by the way, prints all the lines in the file just to the screen. It just basically says for every line in the file, print it to the screen. It's a very simple program. We could vim Titanic and just open it up in a text editor here. But we don't need to. We just got some random names here. They don't mean anything. So we got a last name. And then the file format that we're using here is we're using a colon delimited file format. There's all sorts of different file formats for how you separate columns of data. In this case, the first column is going to be last name. Second column is which class you were on the Titanic. And the third one is whether or not you survived, yes or no. So what I want to do is load all of this data into my program. And so what I want is, later on we're going to learn how to do this a little bit better, but today we're just going to go over how to parse, how to load structured data. So let's get into it. So, all right. So we're going to have a vector of strings for the last names. We're going to have one for the classes, like if you're first class, second class, or third class. And we're going to have one for if you survived or not. Later on, we're going to learn how to combine these things into one. For now, we'll just have 3 different vectors. So how do we open a file? ifstring, and then I typically use ends unless I got some other thing, like maybe a Titanic file. I don't know. It seems maybe more reasonable to me. So what this is going to do is this will open a file for reading. And the name of the file that's going to be opened is called Titanic. And the name of the variable created is called Titanic_file. And once you got this, then you're able to read from it just like you could read from the keyboard with cin. So for example, I could cin into a string if that string existed, which it doesn't yet. So let me make that. What's going on here? Open, thank you, string s. Make a type, there you go. And then see out s, and see how this goes. So whenever you develop, always do incremental development, and you can see here it doesn't seem to be working very well. Okay, because we are cinning, we're not reading from Titanic file. Just want to make sure you guys are paying attention there. Okay, let's try that again. And there you go. So the first word read is Kearney : first : y, which is not what we want. What we actually want is just Kearney read. We want to read until there's a colon. And there's a few different ways of doing this. The easiest way of doing this is by not using double right arrow at all, but by using something called getLine. So we can getLine from ends into s. And if you do this, this reads until, not ends, sorry, Titanic file. If you do this, then this reads until a new line. Okay, so this reads an entire sentence, which is not what we want. What we actually want is to read until a colon. Okay. There's an optional third parameter for getLine, and that says read until a colon. It reads up to and including the colon and discards the colon. This is very, very nice if you're going to be parsing any sort of structured data like a CSV file or a JSON file or something like that. In this case, we have a colon delimited file. And so it's going to read until a colon, and then we're going to output the word that is read. And so now you can see it's just reading Kearney. So again, the file contains Kearney : first : y. So let's do it again. Okay, and maybe maybe we can check to see if an error occurred. You should always probably check to see if errors occur, but I'll show you what happens if we don't do that. So I'm going to leave out the checks for now. Normally I would put in a check for an error right here, but I'm gonna show you in a second what that's going to look like. So let's just do this again. So we got one line, we're going to get another line, and let's just do that for now. So this should print out Kearney, and then it should print out first. And that's in fact what we get, right? So it reads until a colon, it reads until a colon, and then if we do this a third time, what do you think it's going to read? If I tell it to read until a colon is reached, what is your guess? Place your bets now in chat. If I tell it to read a third time, if I copy and paste this code a third time, what do you think it is going to output? I'm going to wait until your votes are in. Take a guess. You'll probably be wrong, or maybe you'll be right. Who knows? What's going to happen if I tell it to read until the next colon? It's going to read Kearney again. Kearney's already out of the input buffer, or the read buffer, whatever you're going to put it. An error, an error. So we are essentially like right here, you know. We say, give me all the text until a colon is read. It gives you Kearney first, Y, new line, Sanchez. Why? Because there's the next colon. Okay, so it is not acting the way that we thought it would, right? It is not, in fact, an error. It will very happily keep reading from the file until a colon is read, and so we get Y, new line, Sanchez. Okay, not what we want. So for this one, we probably just want to do a normal get line, right? We just want to read until a new line, right? Makes sense. So we're going to read until a colon, we're going to read until a colon, read until a new line, and if we do this, then in fact we get Kearney first and Y. So now that I've got it working for one line of the file, how do I make it work for all of the lines in the file? What should I do? Should I just copy and paste this code 15 times? Or what? What do you think I should do? This is how you should be developing, by the way. Start with reading one word, then 2 words, and 3 words. And now that you have a line, loop, yes. And so do we know how many lines are in this file? So should we use a for loop or should we use a while loop? Technically, either will work. So I use a for loop when I know how many times the loop is going to run. I use a while loop when I don't, when I want to run until something is false. So I'm probably going to write a while loop here. Okay. So I'm going to say while Titanic file is true equals shift 5, reformats everything. So what I did there in Vim was equals that. So this reformats everything between the curly boys. Okay. So everything between the curly boys just got reformatted by typing equals shift 5. So if I have some things that are just not formatted properly, I hit the equal key, then I hit shift 5, and everything in that block gets formatted nicely. Nice. Okay. So this this looks kind of okay. There's a problem with it, but it looks okay, right? So we're basically going to repeat and repeat until Titanic file becomes false. Okay. And it becomes false when you run off the edge of the file, right? Now, if we run this, it looks good at first. Kearney first Y, Sanchez second in, Voss first, Nick Riley third. You guys understand? But here at the bottom, we've got 3 blank lines. Why do you think there are 3 blank lines at the bottom? We did a get line and we got blank. We did a get line, we got blank. We got a get line, we got blank. What just happened there? Why is there these 3 extra lines at the bottom of the file? It's three new lines? I don't think so. At the bottom, I can check. Nope, there are no new lines at the end. So we get through Tipton, third class, survived. Cool. Why is there 3 blank lines coming out when I do a get line and a get line and a get line? So basically we're here, right? And then we do a get line and say, give me all the text until a colon. And then it's just outputting nothing followed by a new line. Why is that happening? Right, I've just finished reading the last line of the file, then I move on to the next loop. This thing is still valid until the file is still valid until you try reading from it. Yeah, it's going off the edge of the file is what's happening. But it's kind of subtle, and this is a bug that gets most new programmers, and even most experienced programmers make this mistake too. If you're at the bottom of the file, Titanic file is not in the error state. It's actually still valid. So it will try reading the next line of code. And so it's going to say, hey, give me all of the code after the Tipton line is done. And it returns an empty string. And so it prints empty string and a new line. Hey, give me all the code until a colon. Empty string. Hey, give me all the thing until new line. Empty string. And it's going to print empty string, end line, empty string, end line, empty string, end line. And then it breaks here. So if we want to prevent that from happening, every time we read from the file, we need to make sure that an error didn't occur. So every time you read from the file, check to see if an error occurred. And if an error occurred, that usually means you ran off the edge of the file. It could be they unplugged the USB drive. It could be the file server went down. There's a lot of reasons why errors could occur. In general, though, if an error occurs, that means you tried doing a get line. There's no data left. It is now in the error state, and it breaks. And so you can actually put this after each one if you want to be safe. And then if we do this, it's not necessary, but if you want to be safe, you can do that. And now you can see we don't have those 3 blank lines at the bottom. Okay? You guys understand? So every time you read from a file, check to see if an error occurred. And if an error occurred, you're done. Okay? It's not an error to read off the edge of a file. Like, it's not an error in the sense of like you have to kill your program, right? Because it's normal. You normally read and read and read till you hit the end of the file. The thing goes into an error state. You're like, we're done. And then you bail out. Does that make sense? This pattern, by the way, everyone forgets. And like when you do the Pokemon assignment in this class, you're going to be reading from the actual Pokemon database, and you're probably going to get the last Pokemon and then one more that doesn't exist because you read off the end. It happens. It happens to all of us, okay? Does this make sense? So every time you read from a file, whether it's through double right arrow or get line or anything like that, you guys understand? Every time you read from a file, see if you hit the end of file. Rule of thumb. Okay? Okay. And so this is working. So now the last thing we need to do is we just need to stick each of these things into the respective vector. So we just read in a name. So we're going to say last names dot pushback s. So we're going to add the last name to the last names vector. We're going to add, separate this out a little bit so it's a little bit easier to read. And then classes dot push back. Yes. And then we'll do the same for survived. And there we go. So now we've got 3 different vectors, one of which has everyone's last names. The second one has everyone's classes, were you first class, second class, or third class. And the third one has if you survived, yes or no in it. We probably could redo survive to be a Boolean or something like that, but whatever. And then I'll just print them all out. So for every string s in last names, cout s. Should this be call by value? Should it be call by reference? Or should it be call by const reference if I want to be most correct? Place your votes now on Discord, or I'll just sit here and drink this delicious Eatwin Jasmine tea. The official tea of Seaside 40. No, there are no sponsorships in this channel. I just like Eatwin. The correct answer is call by const reference. Okay. The reason for that is because call by value will make a copy of each one, which is slow if you've got a lot of names. So call by const reference does not make a copy. It passes the original string out from the vector, but we don't want to change it because we're just printing it. It'd be really weird if we changed it when we printed it. So const reference is the way to go. Y3Y, shift P. And we got here DB classes, and come down here, and DB survived. And there we go. So this will print out all of the last names. Then it's going to print out everyone's first, second, or third class status, and then it's going to print whether or not those people survived. And this is an actual data set. Like what I made here is not the actual data set, but there is actually a data set you can find that actually has the survival like data for everybody on the Titanic. And so like it's a pretty standard data science exercise, like analyze the survival data of the Titanic and figure out statistical conclusions from it. Like, were you more likely to die if you're in first class? Were you more likely to die if you're a woman? That kind of stuff. So it's a fun little project. We're not doing that today. Today, I'm just showing you that if you have a file that is structured like this, it's got columns of data. How do you read one column, one column, one column? How do you check for running off the edge of the file? How do you put it into a data structure? And this is how you do it. So that's it. So from here to here, that's how you do it. It's not too bad. Basically, you just have to tell it what the delimiter is. The delimiter is like what separates different columns of text. In this case, it's a colon, last name, colon, class, colon, something. So we just read it until the next colon. And then the last thing on the line is going to be a regular get line instead of a colon delimited, because it reads until the new line. Then it's done, and then it starts over on the next line. We just check for an error every time. One other thing we should probably check for is that all three of the vectors are the same size. Because what if it has like last name, class, and then no survival data on the very last line? So we should probably check for that. So if last So if so basically if we read like 10 last names and 10 classes and like 9 survived, that's a problem. That means the last line was kind of like missing part of the data. And so in this case, we'll just print there's an error and quit. And this is basically what you do, right? Like I said last time, you generally don't get your data from the keyboard. You know, like large amounts of data you don't get from the keyboard. Like maybe somebody will like type in their name, type in their password, that kind of stuff. But like for like large amounts of data, that's coming from a file, or it might come from a network. But you know, it's basically you're not gonna be using CN and cout for like, you know, doing all of the tax, you know, calculations for people in America. You know, like the IRS doesn't have people sitting there typing in everyone's name on the keyboard every time. Like there's files, there's databases where this is coming from. So yeah, learning how to do this is pretty important. One last thing before I go, and we start looking at all of your RPG assignments. I have moved back the Zybooks 5 days, so I'm giving you 5 additional days to do the Zybooks. I was quite impressed with the RPG assignments from the 12 o'clock class, and so as a result, I'm giving you guys 5 extra days on the Zybooks. There will be no new Zybooks this week, so there you go. Enjoy your extra time to work on that. You might need to go into Zybooks and like refresh it or submit something if your score doesn't show up on Canvas when you change dates. It gets kind of weird sometimes. You might want to go back into Zybooks and like do like one exercise and submit, and and then it might update. If it doesn't work, let me know. Thank you, in-person class. Yeah, the in-person class did a pretty good job. So that's it for today for the lecture part. Don't leave, because it is now your chance to present. So please talk amongst yourselves and your respective groups, and we're gonna hop in and show off your games to everybody. Okay, so it should be a lot of fun. The like I said, the 12 o'clock class just knocked it out of the park. Every one of the projects there was like, I don't think everybody did every bullet point, but like all of the projects were good. Like, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how good all the projects were. So well done to them. Okay, so signing off for now, and I'll see you people online on Wednesday. People here, don't leave. We're gonna do your projects now.